The impasse over the debt ceiling continues as key leaders prepare to meet next week. And today, lawmakers expressed sharp divisions during a Senate hearing. The top Democrat on the Budget Committee said the Republican bill would cause economic harm to the country, while Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the House GOP plan is dead on arrival in the upper chamber. For more on this, Nikole Killion and Caitlin Huey-Burns join us now. Nikole is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Caitlin is a CBS News political correspondent. But we begin with Nikole on Capitol Hill. Nikole, thanks for being here. Tell me about the key leaders that are coming to this meeting next week. You have Hakeem Jeffries and Kevin McCarthy in the House, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell in the Senate. What are the dynamics at play?
Well, the dynamics are going to be an interesting one because I don't know that they've all been in the same room, but certainly not all in the same room, talking about this topic, even though they have all had plenty to say on this issue. You know, the real question is going to be whether or not they can move towards some type of agreement or deal. As you well know, Bob, the White House has made clear that they simply want a clean debt limit increase. There is not room for negotiation on anything else. They can discuss fiscal matters in a separate conversation. But Republicans remain in lockstep. Speaker McCarthy, as well as Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, have both kind of been on the same page in terms of backing this Republican bill that passed the House. And McConnell made clear there's really no room for the Senate to be involved at this point. He really thinks there should be a deal struck between McCarthy and the president. We know, of course, Hakeem Jeffries and Leader Schumer have been closely coordinating as far as their messaging with respect to the debt limit. So certainly a lot of eyes will be on this meeting and a lot of hope and anticipation that something can come out of it productive to avoid the U.S. economy being on this path where we're heading closer to that cliff.
What's one of the main Republican requests here? It looks like from some of the details in our reporting, it's about freezing spending levels. Tell us a little bit more about this Republican position, this ask ahead of this meeting.
Well, that's right. And we heard both sides really kind of drill down on their points in this hearing that took place earlier today here on the Hill. In fact, we learned from Chief Economist Mark Zandi that X date where the U.S. could hit that default could be as soon as June 8th, although he said that could come by June 1st, which is certainly what the Treasury Department has warned. And he said in a best case scenario, it could be August 8th. But that being said, you know, Republicans believe that, you know, Democrats' spending is out of control and they really need to rein it in. And so that's why to them, they really don't want to increase the debt limit unless there's some meaningful steps that are taken towards spending reforms. And that is, you know, a big part of why you saw House Republicans muscle that plan through in 2 weeks, which contains $4.5 trillion worth of cuts. So Republicans really see that as their starting point and their opening argument as they prepare to meet with the president.
Nikole Killion, we'll let you get back to work. Thank you very much. We turn now to Caitlin Huey-Burns about her latest reporting. But let's begin, Caitlin, with your conversation with a top advisor to President Biden, Anita Dunn.
The president had said that he is not going to negotiate with Republicans. Now he is going to sit down with them. Isn't that a negotiation?
The president has been clear since the beginning of the year, which is that, you know, sending America into default for the first time in our history is actually not a negotiable thing. It never has been negotiable. It never will be negotiable. But that he is happy to talk about budget and appropriations. He is happy to talk about how do we reduce our deficit in the long term. And he made it very clear back in February he was going to send his budget to Congress in March with his priorities. He sent a budget that cuts the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years, and that when the Republicans had a proposal, we should put them together and then we should talk.
In this meeting next week, what exactly is the president going to want in terms of a commitment?
Well, I think what the president expects is, first of all, for Congress to do its job. This is actually Congress's job. The president cannot raise the debt limit. It is their job to do this, right? It is their job to keep us from defaulting. But what he also would like to do, and he has been clear about this, is that there is a place, and it's an appropriate time now, for the congressional leaders to begin the kinds of budget discussions that, frankly, you have when one house is controlled by the Republicans, the other house is controlled by Democrats. So this should move forward. And the president has been consistent since the beginning of the year that he felt that there would have to be these budget discussions, but that has nothing to do with keeping the United States economy from going into default.
Kevin McCarthy argues that he's already done his job, that he passed a measure last week through his conference, that it's very difficult to do for him. He has argued that he's done his job.
Well, Caitlin, I don't know, maybe they need to go back to School of Rock and look at like how a bill becomes law, but he has begun his job because, you know, the job is first the House passes something, then of course the Senate has to pass something, and Leader Schumer has already said what the House passed is never going to pass the Senate.
Nobody's closer to President Biden than Anita Dunn. Maybe Mike Donnellan, but I mean, she has been at his side through all of the turmoil and challenges, but also some of the high points during his presidency. One part of that interview was so intriguing. She talked about the president's willing to negotiate on budget measures. So when you look at the big picture here, maybe they're not going to have any kind of debt limit agreement that the president's going to put spending cuts on the table. But could we see some kind of compromise, Caitlin, where President Biden agrees to future spending cuts if the debt limit is extended?
Well, that certainly was implied that they're willing to have that conversation. But again, making sure that they are separate conversations. The White House still maintains that they don't want any sort of attachment to a raising of the debt ceiling. But what's significant here is that the two sides are sitting down, but they are still so far apart on the policy. You and I both covered the last iteration of this back in 2013 when Biden was kind of the lead negotiator.
Don't age us, Caitlin.
I know. I was like,
We're
I
just
feel
starting out here.
a lot older now. Still the same kinds of fights. But what's interesting is Biden does, of course, have experience, but it's so different this time around because, as Nikole mentioned, then he was dealing one-on-one with McConnell.
Is that how this ends, Caitlin? Could it be Biden at the end of the day saying, Speaker McCarthy, maybe stay to the side. I'm going to cut a deal at the 11th hour with McConnell? I
mean, the difference here, though, is that the House Republicans control the House. So they have to get something out of the House. And as you know, McCarthy's speakership could be on the line if he has to cut any sort of deal that involves Democrats. What I do think is interesting here, though, is that the White House still is very adamant that Congress is responsible here. Yes, they are going to set up this meeting next week with the leaders, but Anita Dunn told me that essentially, look, this is up to Congress. We trust, I asked, do you trust McCarthy as an honest broker in this deal? And she said that they trust congressional leaders to realize that defaulting is just a terrible thing for the economy. So I would note, too, that, we have till June, but Congress has limited days that they're actually in session. The Senate just left this afternoon to head out of town. So the calendar here is very narrow.
We'll get back to your interview with Anita Dunn later in the show. Caitlin Huey-Burns will be sticking around. Thanks for joining us for this initial discussion.